The litany of crimes that Labour has committed against this country, misleading the markets, frustrating the child rape gang inquiries, handing over our British territory, collapsing the Chinese spy case, it feels like we are being run by a commie mafia. We're witnessing democracy unravel in real time. France is laughing all the way to the bank with this. We have paid them nearly £1 billion to apparently try and stop the boats from their side. Well, they're just using it for long lunches, cheese and vino. This is a nightmare for this country. We don't have the space. We're a tiny island. We're skint. We don't even have houses for our children. There's not enough jobs for our kids.
Hello and welcome to the Daily Expresso. I'm Steph Spyro. Our regular host JJ is having a well-earned day off, so I'm in his presenting chair today, and I'm delighted to be joined by the brilliant Belinda de Lucy to kick off the week. Belinda, it's December the 1st, so the countdown to Christmas is well and truly on. Are you in the festive spirits?
I am. I'm just trying to get myself off the naughty list to be hopefully the recipient of some goodies on Christmas Day. No, I am. I'm very, very excited. I've got still the kids at home, so those Christmas trees, decorations all went up at the weekend.
Amazing.
All the festive music.
And how many mince pies have you eaten?
Probably about 12.
Very
Puff
good.
Pastry, the
Very
best,
good.
homemade.
Very good. And it's only 1st of December, so a whole month more of it to
I know,
come.
I'm going to have the Father Christmas tummy by the end of it, but January will help hopefully wean me off the pies and the gammon and the
Amazing.
booze. We'll
Amazing.
see.
Now, the budget really has been a nightmare before Christmas. Keir Starmer denies misleading the public over the need for tax rises in last week's budget. The Prime Minister said the government was told it had £16 billion less than it expected when the details were being finalised. Now, his own team is turning against him, with one senior minister claiming the cabinet was also not given the full picture about the state of the nation's finances. Tory leader Kemi Badenoch has written for the Express today, calling for Rachel Reeves to quit and insisting she must be sacked if she refuses. Nigel Farage reported Miss Reeves to the ethics watchdog, claiming she orchestrated a campaign to portray public finances as being in a state of collapse so she could hike up taxes. There's budget fallout, Belinda, and then there's budget fallout.
It's been totally, actually. I've just been watching Keir Starmer's little press conference he did just now. I mean, being rolled out only a couple of days after the budget day release to try and defend the Chancellor, who he barely mentioned, by the way, barely mentioned Reeves at all when he was going pink-faced, looking very queasy in the sort of firing line as all the questions came out about misleading, misinformation, lying, wouldn't answer any of it. And interestingly, broadcaster and journalist Peston from Channel 4 said to Keir, in my 35 years of covering budgets, this has been the most shambolic one of all that time. Who do you blame, yourself or Reeves? And Keir didn't answer the question, just went, 14 years of Tory government. That's all he answers. In fact, most of his chat just now was all about blaming the Tories. And this is the guy that promised, just last year that he was on a personal mission to cut the welfare benefit blob that's soaking up all our taxes. And yet now he's saying he's on a moral mission to expand welfare. I mean, £70 billion worth of tax rises in the past year, them having promised not to raise taxes on working people. It is lies, lies, lies. And I tell you what, misleading markets is a crime in this country. Under the Financial Services and Market Act of 2000, it is an actual crime. So, of course, the budget makes sense to a lot of people. When you look at Keir Starmer's roots, he was very much involved in hard left magazines at university. He spent 2 weeks at a commie camp in Czechoslovakia when he was in his 20s, and it was run by the USSR back then. It feels like the litany of crimes that Labour has committed against this country, misleading the markets, frustrating the child rape gang inquiries, handing over our British territory. It wasn't theirs to hand over, sort of collapsing the Chinese spy case. It feels like we are being run by a commie mafia who are not accountable to anyone, who don't care if they lie and cheat and deceive their way into power. I think there is a growing feeling that this government isn't legitimate. And that we're witnessing democracy unravel in real time because, of course, if manifestos mean nothing, if these solemn pledges Labour made not to raise tax on working people are just ripped up as soon as they get into power, then who are they? What's their party for? They don't represent the working class people. This budget, decentivizes people to work. And of course, it's a hardcore sort of socialist policy that as many people should work for the state or be dependent on the state as possible. So a family, for example, now under this budget, two-parent working family with 3 children will have to earn up to £71,000 to even match the massive benefit handout that a non-working family with 3 children are going to receive. And it's anti-growth. And we have a whole generation of Brits being thrown onto the scrap heap. Steph, we have unemployment among working age Brits up to 25% in Birmingham, 23% in Liverpool, 20% in Manchester of 16 to 65-year-olds on out of work benefits. All that talent, all that resources thrown to the dogs. I haven't seen this waste of talent since the First World War and all the men we lost, all the innovators. But it is a budget for benefits. It is a budget, I think, of lies. It doesn't address taking people out of poverty by getting them into work. We'll keep them in poverty by paying them to stay in poverty.
And can I pick up on something? You said it's the budgets of lies, and right at the start you picked up that Starmer didn't mention too much of Reeves in his speech today. Yeah. How safe do you think she is as his Chancellor? Because him sacking Reeves is an admittance that he has failed.
Well, absolutely. I don't think she will. I don't think it's likely she'll be sacked, because I think they've given themselves a carte blanche to lie whenever they like, and it doesn't matter. And also, if he targets her, he's complicit as well. It's going to be impossible, I think, to bring Keir down easily, especially with the Labour Party. They have to jump through so many hoops to change leaders. But at its core, it doesn't matter who leads the Labour Party. The economic policies will always be very, very socialist, very anti-growth, very big welfare budget. It doesn't matter who replaces Keir or who replaces Reeves. And actually, it's not all Reeves's fault, because she gets the okay from everyone around her. But isn't it interesting that apparently the cabinet are not talking to Keir because they feel they were misled by him and Reeves? The public don't believe a word that Keir says. His press conference just now, I was sitting there thinking, but you talk rubbish. You lie all the time.
And how do you then restore, so the markets, not much trust there.
Yeah.
Among the public, definitely not. How do you restore trust in politics? That's quite an important thing.
I think the problem with politics at the moment is that Westminster fell out of love with democracy years ago, and the public only became aware of it in 2016 when Westminster tried every trick in the book to overturn the Brexit result. I think that came to an absolute shock to the general public, whereas actually I think that was the norm in Westminster. And I think certainly for my children and the young generation of Brits out there, they don't know any different. They've never experienced a government of the people, by the people, for the people, like Abraham Lincoln said once. This is their norm. So that generation, when they grow up and become, part of the government in 20 years' time, they won't know what it's like, how to put British interests first, how to stick to your manifesto. I do think there should be some law that is brought in where there is accountability for political parties who completely rip up their manifestos as soon as they get into power. Of course, the Tories did it as well. And I think both parties, people have had enough. The legacy parties, for me, are dead ducks. And that is why there's so much support for reform. And I know Nigel is wanting this investigation into Reeves. But it's funny. During the whole COVID thing, Labour lost their shiitake mushrooms over Boris holding a piece of cake, right, and demanded an investigation. And now many people cross-party are demanding an investigation into this, lying and misleading the markets and the people, and Labour having a hissy fit about it. Well, we're playing by your rules, Labour. We need this investigation, because when trust is broken, when democracy doesn't work, there's a likelihood of civil unrest, because it is the only vehicle people can change their lives with, the way they have a stake in the laws we live under, right? If they take away the ballot box, then they're in big trouble. And I will blame Westminster for this.
Civil unrest is an interesting and maybe an interesting foreshadowing to next year. You never know what 2026 holds.
Yes.
The UK's one-in, one-out deal with France, designed to reduce dangerous small boat crossings by offering a legal route to the UK for genuine asylum seekers, is in a mess. The strict rules for asylum seekers in France to come to the UK legally means migrants must own a passport or national ID, which very few do. It's now been revealed that more than 13,000 asylum seekers have crossed the channel in small boats, but only 153 migrants have been sent back to France. Belinda, I mean, this feels obvious to say, but that's not a deterrent, is it?
There's no deterrent here whatsoever. In fact, I think the one in, one out will increase asylum applications to this country. And the UK has an incredibly high asylum grant rate. You don't need to have much evidence. You don't need, documentation or anything like that. Much higher than France, actually. I mean, France is laughing all the way to the bank with this. We have paid them nearly £1 billion to apparently try and stop the boats from their side. Well, they're just using it for long lunches, cheese and vino. I mean, they're not doing anything their side whatsoever. Macron has a huge threat from the right wing, Le Pen. So it's not in his interests to relieve France of, to retain these asylum seekers in France. He wants to probably get rid of them as quickly as possible over to the UK. This policy is not only not working, but it is a complete and utter waste of money. It costs millions just to process this one in, one out. And in the deal, it is so one-sided, Steph. It benefits France far more than the UK. So, for example, in this deal, the UK has to pay for all transport costs of the migrants, not just our side, but their side bringing migrants to us as well. And that in itself costs millions and millions. They then can just jump back on a boat and come back in, as we've seen with the 2 people that have come back twice. And there's something very dangerous about a country, a government, outsourcing border control to a foreign nation. I mean, it speaks volumes at what a failure this government is at controlling its own borders, unless it doesn't want to. And that's where I think, a lot of people are beginning to wake up. This is very deliberate. The huge pull factor, the massive rewards for breaking into the country that this country gives, which are far superior to the rest of Europe. Dominic Cummings says this all the time, former advisor to Number 10. He says everything is going as planned. The state of this country, the asylum system, this is not an accident.
So what do you mean by that? Because you said it's deliberate.
Yes.
What do you mean?
So, for example, countries have the right to they have a choice in who they let in, who's eligible for asylum. But our case law in this country has meant this net is ever expanding about who is eligible. For example, we have a high number of Pakistani migrants claiming asylum. Pakistan's a very safe country. There's no war there. People go on that holiday all the time. So 10,000 Pakistani migrants on a sort of visas, short-term visas, claimed asylum in this country last year after their visa ran out. This is a huge loophole that the government has known about since day one. So refusing to close that loophole is a deliberate choice.
Sure.
And of course, once they're here, only 1.1% get deported. Now, how is it a deterrent if you're coming over by boat? And even if you get your asylum application refused, you're going to stay anyway. So I think the British people are waking up and realising that the Labour government and the Tory government, it's a deliberate choice to open our borders. We've seen many European countries take much stricter measures. Austria is now sending asylum seekers back to Syria because it's considered a safe country. They have these choices. Our government won't do it.
Shabana Mahmood, the Home Secretary, not too long ago, a week or two ago, announced some reforms. Do you think that's going to help, or is there anything that the government can do that you think will make a difference?
No, because Labour don't want to make a difference. They need the votes, and it's essential for Labour. Now they've lost the electorate, they've lost the working class. Who do they get their votes from? Those on benefits, hence the budget. Make people dependent on benefits. You control them, and it's very hard to get out of it. And migrants. 70% of migrants vote for Labour. So essentially for them, the division it also causes, the sort of suspicion in communities, a divided country is so distracted on each other, they let the government get away with, literal murder, if you think of all the horrific crimes that have been committed because of the government's asylum chaos. I think for Labour, they want this. I think, and for them, you noticed in the budget, again, the only people they attacked, the only people that they're stealing money from, because I do see the budget as government theft, not taxation, is the British working people. They're not taking benefits or reducing, cost of living or whatever for the migrants coming over by boat. They're specifically targeting the British working families. So we know what side they're on.
And it's really interesting, you touched on it there, but that those 2 hokey migrants had gone through the whole process of arriving, being deported, and then it came back. So it's clearly the UK's got a massive pull to it.
And also Shabana wants more safe and legal routes. This is a nightmare for this country. We don't have the space. We're a tiny island. We're skint. We don't even have houses for our children. There's not enough jobs for our kids. And yet she wants more opportunities for people to come abroad into this country and live off the backs of the working people. Well, I'm really sorry. I don't really like the feeling of men who are happy to leave their women and children in apparently a conflict zone, running away from them like scared. To me, that's not a principled man. The idea that my father, my brother, my husband would ever leave us in a dangerous place, it speaks volumes about the character of a lot of the men coming across. Secondly, developing countries will never develop if their workforce just jumps ship and lives off someone else's country. Stay in your country, rebuild it. This is what the English had to do for 1,000 years. So, I think that the whole system's been completely abused, and Brits are a generous people. But I think we've now got foreign grievance fatigue a little bit, and there's so much going on at home. I'm not surprised people are getting more and more angry at the attention, time and money spent on foreign nationals' grievances.
I think there's, as you say, a lot in that. It takes up a lot of, there's a lot of pressure on local services, takes up a lot of time in the media, when people are genuinely worried about the NHS, cost of living crisis, and so many
and safety on our streets.
And safety on our
and jobs for our children. I think it's so sad that after university graduation jobs have completely dropped. We should be investing in apprenticeships. At 16, if you're not academic, then go into an apprenticeship with plumbers and builders and construction workers. The focus on the British workforce has to be a top priority, and it isn't with Labour, it wasn't with the Conservative Party, but I do believe it will be with Reform.
Well, that brings us very well on to our next segment. Friend of the show and former Conservative MP Jonathan Gullis has defected to Reform UK. Speaking on the move, Gullis said he was pleased to be joining Reform UK after 18 years with the Tory party. In his statement, he claimed to have watched the party lose touch with the people it was meant to serve, adding that they failed to control both legal and illegal migration to pursue the net zero agenda. He is the 20th former or current Conservative MP to defect to Reform over ongoing doubts about Kemi Badenoch's leadership. Belinda, do you think this is the last defection we will see to Reform this year?
Well, that's a good. This year, what we've got a month left. Probably this year. I think maybe they space out the announcements of defections. Who knows? I'm not surprised. Listen, I fell out of love with the Conservative Party years and years ago. They were once a party of aspiration and lifting people out of poverty through opportunity and work, and then they became as elite and as blinkered as the metropolitan lovies in the Labour Party. But they aren't all bad apples. There are some really good Tory MPs. Jonathan Gullis is one of my favourites, actually. He won his seat in the 2019 election. He is one of Boris's Red Wall MPs, and it's not surprising to me that the Red Wall are shifting more and more towards Reform, the party of working class, working people and aspiration. And his record on holding to account wokery and identity politics while he was Tory MP was very, very impressive. I'll tell you some of the things he said while he was an MP. Of course, he lost his seat in the last election. He chastises teachers using the term white privilege in schools to children. He believed that they should face disciplinary hearings, which I think was fantastic because there was an increase in this sort of anti-white racism rhetoric in schools. I know my daughter experienced it herself and had to complain about to the school about it. And it was great to hear that he had spoken up about that. He spoke up about extremist, progressive policies being indoctrinating our children in schools. And I think that kind of experience, talent, he's well-spoken, I think will be an asset to Reform. We also need to appeal to a huge range of people. Our core will never change. Nigel is the leader. He has had the courage of his convictions for 30 years. He ain't changing on any of those. But we do need to attract people from all parties. Otherwise, we'll just remain in the polls at 15, 20%. We cannot be this purist political party because we will never change anything that way. So I do welcome people from any party, whether it's Labour, Tories, or have never voted in their life, if they bring expertise, experience, and pulls votes in with them, because this is the last chance saloon for this country. If Reform don't get in next election, it's the end. You say goodbye to the England we knew and love. The unmaking of England will be complete. So I welcome it, yeah.
Do you know, it's so interesting to hear you say you're not surprised, because I was speaking to some Tories this morning who were surprised by Gullis's move. And that's because he was kind of the attack dog that the party would send out to hit out at reform. So it's funny how the tables turn.
Yeah.
But do you think there's a risk that reform becomes Tories 2.0 if you bring in too many Conservatives?
I think if, for example, the Tory defectors suddenly have very, very senior positions in reform, and their record history was very pro-net zero, pro-mass immigration, all that sort of, then I do think there would be a problem there. But that's not what's happening at all. The Tory MP is just defecting. He's not a standing Tory MP, so he doesn't hold a position of power in the party. And I absolutely, the idea, the Conservatives, to me, I feel such a wave of loathing for the party, not the people, but the party. They handed Labour the keys. They knew the destruction and devastation that Labour would bring to this country. In the last 100 years, Labour has never, ever left government without leaving a higher unemployment rate than it did when it entered. You know, the record is there, but Rishi Sunak just surrendered. The Tory party surrendered and just gave this country to Labour and all the destruction it would bring without barely a fight. And so I do blame the Conservative Party a lot for the state of the economy in the country under Labour. So yeah, I don't think it will become 2.0. That would repel a lot of people, including me.
And it's quite interesting that Kemi Badenoch maybe hasn't won the confidences of her members for there to be these defections, and no doubt there's probably more to come in 2026 on that front too.
Yeah, probably. I mean, Kemi does try her best. She's had a couple of reasonably good speeches. That is it. Otherwise, she's just whistling in a hurricane. No one really is listening to her. She was very much part. She was, of course, in the Tory party when they decided to scrap all the Brexit benefits of burning EU regulation. You know, that was on her. So also her record isn't brilliant. So I don't think there's a lot of trust with Kemi. She's very much, you know, one of the sort of old party stooges, a possible kind of Michael Gove kind of protege. So yeah, and people don't trust the Tory party either. So
always
welcome.
That seems to be a recurring theme in today's episode. So finally, the wait is over. Oxford University Press has revealed this year's Word of the Year. After 3 days of voting, experts crowned ragebait as this year's winner, beating aura farming and biohacking. The internet cousin of clickbait, the Oxford Dictionary defines ragebaiting as online content intentionally designed to elicit anger or outrage by being frustrating, provocative or offensive, typically posted in order to increase traffic to or engagement with a particular web page or social media content. Belinda, rage baiting, ever come across the term?
I have, because I have 4 teenage kids.
Very good.
So yeah, I probably rage bait them all the time. I think, you know, we get rage baited, gaslit by, you know, our government at the moment pretty much every day. Listen, I think with the big MSM broadcasters, they are suddenly up against a massive social media journalism wave, so they have to get people's attention. So the clickbait, rage baiting type headlines, they get people involved and engaged, but I do think it kind of tears people's nerves to shreds. Absolutely. Because things aren't often as bad as the headlines portray once you go into the article. But no, it's very interesting hearing the new words coming up. I know my girls use Sigma a lot. Oh, that person's so Sigma, which apparently...
What does that mean?
That means like...
Really I'm not down with the kids.
Yeah. They hate it when I use it. Like, Mom, you can't use it. It's so embarrassing. It means very cool, person with confidence. They use slay a lot. Okay. Oh, Mom, that was so slay. So all these words are coming in. I think we've lost some wonderful English descriptive terms that were used, you know, from medieval times right up until the 1900s. And I wish we could bring those back instead of a lot of the modern day terms. Like, what's my favourite one? It's a nodcock, which I think describes a lot in Parliament right now, which is a fool whose head nods vacantly, constantly. And I think there are a lot of terms that are very funny, and the new ones coming in the Oxford Dictionary are very amusing. And of course, they reflect the time. There's a lot to do with internet, like there's tech neck now. So tech neck apparently is this lump that young people get on the back of their neck from this constant hunched position they have over their phones, and brain rot,
which was last year's word of the year, I think.
Last year's word of the year.
So the internet is creeping in.
Addiction to internet consuming sort of time, and I think so. We'll see a lot of dictionary additions that relate to this whole new internet world.
I love it. I'm just imagining in your household, your girls saying Sigma and things like that, and you're like, not a cock? Or, love that.
I know, I love it. I love all the old terms. We have, a codswomple, codswallop. We have so many wonderful old terms.
Back.
I think we should bring those back.
Absolutely.
And get our young to start speaking in medieval, humorous, abusive terms.
That's what we need, more of that. Right, Belinda, that is all we've got time for today. Thank you so much for joining us in the studio, and thank you so much to you for watching at home. That's been another episode of the Daily Expresso. Bye.